Hello, I'm Charles Epstein, host of the X Factor podcast. Today's guest is Ayana Onasi, co-founder and CEO of Dextigo's autonomous sales coaching platform, which helps reps develop relationship selling skills. Before Dextigo, Ayana was VP of People and Chief of Staff of Aptivio, where she hired and developed global talent. Before getting into tech, and before arriving on these shores from her native Greece, she started a sustainable fashion company with her sister. One of Brianna's missions is to share her Gen Z founder insights to help fellow Gen Z and underrepresented founders accelerate their entrepreneurial journeys. And as a follower of her LinkedIn page, I know she does an exceedingly good job of just that. Ayana, welcome.
Thank you, Charles. It's a pleasure to be here.
Yes, and Ayana, I should say, joins us today from Astoria, Queens, and I'm going to have to ask you the most important question right up top, Ayana. I don't think, in my experience, my limited experience, having lived up there for most of my life, I don't think there's any better place in all of New York, perhaps all of the U.S., for great Greek food. Can you confirm this for our listeners, Ayana?
Absolutely, yes. I confirm 100%. I love
every street corner. It's just amazing, right?
Absolutely, yes. You get to really actually meet the owners too. They're super friendly, and they all are coming from different places of Greece. So it's truly a Greek experience, I should say.
Yeah, my good friend and creative partner, Tom Alexander, he and I have co-hosted any number of podcasts together and have done quite a lot of other work together. He's Greek. And anytime I discover a new Greek place down here, the first thing I do is run it by Tom. I need validation. I mean, even if I think it's delicious, I still wait for him. I mean, one of my crowning moments was when he gave 2 thumbs up to my mom's spanakopita.
Oh, wow. That's
so I knew it was as good as I thought it was.
Awesome. Have you learned how to make it yourself?
I have not. And Tom actually has given me some really, really good recipes. He gave me several years ago a whole range of, at the time I was pescatarian. I kind of have veered from that. I'm going to shortly get back to it, and I'm going to have to find those recipes and try my hand at some of them. But he actually is a great cook, and I absolutely love, Mediterranean food generally, Greek food in particular. And there are several really terrific Greek places down here. So in any case. So, yeah, thanks so much. I know you're a hard get because I know you've got a lot of plates spinning, a lot of things going on. So thanks so much for making the time. I really do appreciate it.
My pleasure. And I'm excited for our conversation.
Absolutely. On your LinkedIn page, it says you were an entrepreneur at 15. I assume that's based on a sustainable fashion company you started with your sister?
Actually, no. Back at 15, what I did is I had started a student organization at my high school in Greece. It was called NGSW. It stood for New Generation Sustainable World. And back then I was very interested in bringing sustainability and sustainable practices in Greek businesses because it wasn't a topic that was as much discussed as today. So what we did is actually we created an educational platform. We had a blog. We were posting a lot about these different methods and practices companies could use. And we went with a couple of students to local companies like different cafeteria chains, and we suggested, for example, how they should be using stainless steel straws before it was even a thing, and making, cost analysis and truly acting as like very mini consultants, trying to have a positive impact there. And honestly, it was very rewarding because now we see, using stainless steel straws or anything sustainable is basically the go-to for European companies. But when we were trying to have those conversations, it was like, what? Why should we change? And what do you mean people won't like tasting things from this type of straws? And it was my
Yeah.
first, interaction with change management and even selling, because we were trying to sell a new concept and an idea. But the most interesting component looking back was the fact that we were able to get students from all sorts of different backgrounds and students that were interested in pursuing different careers in the future to start thinking of how they should include the sustainability mindset in what they do. For instance, I remember like yesterday, we were doing this exercise where they had a paper in front of them and they were thinking of, depending on their career, what would be the first thing they do. And there was a student interested in becoming a dentist. And she said, when I choose supplies and the things I'll have like equipment and whatever I have in my office, I'll make sure I check that they are either created from reusable materials, and I would try to, for instance, give my like my clients, then how they give that like a toothbrush, like I would make sure I give them one made out of bamboo, things like that. So that was what I was doing back then.
That's really amazing and amazingly precocious. My daughter, when she was very young, was a competitive cheerleader, and she, at the age of 13, started a cheerbo business. And what's great about that is, just like with what you did, it taught her so many valuable lessons along the way, not least interacting with adults, people who are significantly older, and acting in a responsible way, being responsive to issues, and so on and so forth. And the other good thing as her parent is I didn't have to give her an allowance. She completely supported herself until the age of 18, which was great. But of course, she wasn't doing anything sustainable. That's just remarkably precocious at the age of 15 to have that vision. Now, you're a grizzled veteran entrepreneur before reaching the advanced age of 30, yes? So where did you find this passion for entrepreneurship? Who were your role models? Did you have role models?
Definitely. I think they got created a little later, though. I think back then, my first exposure to entrepreneurship and business overall started from summer programs I was attending here in the States. So my school in Greece was really good in education.
I'm sorry, Anna. So at what age did you move to the States?
So I moved 8 years ago, but I was coming every summer since I was 15 to attend different summer programs in universities. Yeah, like Lehigh, Smith College. And what I learned there is that Americans are very much ahead of the curve when it comes to thinking in an entrepreneurial way, meaning how do you start something from scratch and how you monetize it. That's what I learned by attending these programs. And the second thing I would say that was a huge lesson is the importance of teamwork. So we would have all these team projects and we would try to help local businesses. For example, we went to a non-for-profit when I was at Lehigh in Bethlehem in PA, and we were helping them create their business plans and marketing materials to really raise awareness in the local community about the work they were doing in some parks over there. And so coming back, to Greece, that's when I started that club and I started to learn more and read the biographies of entrepreneurs. And of course, following the big names like Steve Jobs and Elon Musk. And these are the type of people that have always motivated me because they were able to start something from zero when everything was against them, like fighting all odds. You hear like all the failures they had to go through till they become successful. And that really taught me the importance of persistence. I also had other role models, female ones, which might have not been necessarily entrepreneurs when it comes to like the business side, but they were entrepreneurs when it comes to the creativity side, like Frida Kahlo. Also, Coco Chanel, for instance, as a fashion icon too. These type of models when you look into the context and the lives they had and how difficult things were back then, but they
Sure.
still were very much focused on the end goal, and they believed in themselves, that they created a community and strong followers that helped them get to where they wanted to go, is always, I think, a source of inspiration for me.
Interesting, Frida Kahlo. That's an interesting role model. Sort of along those lines, Samuel Beckett famously wrote, I forget which play this is from, Try Again, Fail Better. From your earliest entrepreneurial experiences to just yesterday, what's your best mistake, the one you learned the most from?
That's a very deep question. It's hard to pick one, but I'll say that it has been trusting others more than I trust myself.
But by the way, Yana, if I could just interject,
Yeah.
that's one of the things you really talk about in your entrepreneurial journey on your LinkedIn
Yes.
page. I mean, I really admire your transparency and your admission about making a misstep and the importance of resilience. But again, I just want to give you a shout out on that because I think
Yeah,
it's great work.
I appreciate it, and I think it's the only way, right? Like, as a founder, as an entrepreneur, what you always do is make bets. And the most important bets you make are on other humans. And
Well,
today,
also on yourself, but yes.
yes, so first, exactly. So first you have to make to yourself, but there have been times where I thought, for instance, oh, I'm not going to be good at this, so I have to trust someone else to do it for me. But all I end up learning is that if you give yourself the opportunity to develop a new skill and put the time to learn how to do it, you can definitely do it yourself. Now, I'm not suggesting you have to do everything yourself, but I do suggest that you have to learn first the basics of everything to be able to also assess if someone else is doing it right,
Correct. Yeah.
etc. So, and I think that has been the most beautiful development personally this last year, where I've been able to learn so many different things for all the different business functions, right? Like, I do a little of marketing, a little bit of sales, customer success, product development, and there's a few times, yeah, that I've bet on even like for instance, a consultant or a partner that end up not working out, and it's not a big deal, like at the larger, grand scheme of things, but in that moment, I think I felt it more strongly than I do now. Because when
Right.
you make that bet, you really hope that it's going to help you take the company or whatever project you're working on the next level. It's just becoming, I think, extremely complex for people to prove value unless you try them first, right? Like, no matter what someone says on LinkedIn or on their resume, unless you actually work with someone, you don't know what they can deliver. And I think I'm becoming better and better in assessing that in a shorter period of time. But the best way to go about it, and what people end up doing, is always, ask for referrals, right? Let's say you want to get a website done, you're going to ask your friend that knows someone that has built their website, etc. So now it's all about building that strong network that you get these warm referrals and introductions. But when I didn't have that network early on, I was making a few mistakes like that. So that's, I think, the biggest lesson learned.
Sure. No, that's great. Thanks. Now, let's get to Dex2Go. First, I'd like to know, well, share with our listeners how it works. I get the daily challenges, so I'm very familiar with how it works and its power and how habit forming it is and can be. Actually, before getting into how it works, what's the origin story? Was it an aha moment? Did you see something in the marketplace that needed to be addressed? Was it a slow gathering of insights and a vision that coalesced over time?
Yes, I think every founder will tell you that ideas are formed as you go. Initially, it stemmed from my belief, but also from my experience working at Aptivio, that what separates the average from the best is truly soft skills. This known as human skills or power skills, communication, collaboration, leadership, and seeing how AI, especially Gen AI, is automating so much in terms of processes that we do on a day-to-day, emphasize that need for soft skills, because when in a few years you won't need to know how to code, right? Because AI will do it for you. How will you distinguish a good engineer? They'll be the one that knows why they're building what they're building. They can convey the vision. They can work with other departments. And so seeing that trend of how work is changing, I said, I need to make something that really helps people hone these skills. So initially, we started as soft skills coaching for managers because that's where the gap usually is. Like senior leaders have access to executive coaches, they have access to different types of training. Younger managers don't. However, when we went to market, we started seeing a lot of interest in sales. So we focused the use case on sales enablement, and it's also connected to, again, my background at Aptivio, where the company was also selling to sales. I was working on their sales enablement, and I realized, and actually there's research that backs this up, that says 3.7 trillion of global sales are at risk due to bad interactions with sales associates. And today we're in a point in time where consumers prefer to have a fully self-service experience rather than talking to a salesperson. And that to me is insane, because the human element in sales is what makes all the difference. Knowing, for instance, if you go and have like a bank that you can't reach a human, that's so stressful, right? You might have a question, you might really want to know a status or whatever. Rather than just checking everything online, having that one person you can go to is so important. But these sales reps today are not trained to build the soft skills. They're trained on processes, how to push deals in their pipeline, in their CRM, and sales leaders just don't have the time for one-on-one coaching. So what ends up happening is people have either a learning management system or they have some, standardized onboarding programs, but they lack the, I would say, personalization and the engagement. So the challenge was, how can we make a platform that's very individualized, but also people want to come back to again and again, like
Yes.
user-centric. It's not someone assigning you a course, and it's not just a check mark in your onboarding. It's a tool and a system that can help you on a day-to-day get better at your job. Obviously, the result is also shortening the deal cycle and increasing your revenue targets, but fundamentally, it's helping you sell better. It's allowing you to build trust with the buyer so that buyers want to talk to you and not avoid you.
Yeah, no, I think that's a very important distinction because otherwise you could get somebody who's very script oriented, becomes very mechanical.
Exactly.
I think what you're doing is changing behaviors. It's as much a behavioral tool as it is anything. And it sort of builds those soft skills that go into really being a good salesperson into muscle memory, which is really important because you want it to come across as authentic. And it's very easy to discern. Interestingly, I spoke with the previous podcast, spoke with Dr. Mark Attridge about the intersection of AI and behavioral/mental health. And right out of the gate, I asked him, at what point will AI tools completely take on the role or the counselor role? They'll handle almost entirely the interaction. He said never, because it's a fundamentally human interaction. And I think sales, the same thing. You can have great automation tools, and you can automate some of the tedious, maybe initial weeding in or ruling in, weeding out phases, but ultimately you have to get on the phone. You have to meet that person, whatever the modality is, to make that connection, build the relationship, and it's all based on trust. And it's not going to be something you could easily automate. And these skills are, not just important, they're intrinsic.
100%. And in fact, yesterday I was reading that with AI tools, 60% of the sales process can be automated. But what happens as a result, because everyone's inboxes is flooded with emails, is that the number one source of finding leads today is actually cold calling. So you see again the need for these soft skills arise. And the problem is that when people do role plays and you practice, they think like it will happen in a specific way. But when you have to do with a human, there's always the element of unknown. You don't know what the reaction will be at the other side. So unless you equip the person to be able to address that on the spot, make them adaptable, make them be able, for instance, to negotiate and to listen actively, whatever script you have them have in front of them, they won't be able to just read it through. They'll
Right.
be cut off. There's so much that happens in this circumstance. So to answer your question earlier of how it works, it's basically taking into account all your internal knowledge as a company, those best practices, your data, the things that you know have worked in the past, but it combines it with external knowledge from sales experts we work with, mashing this up in our proprietary AI in order to create a very unique learning experience for each rep, taking into account their role. For instance, an SDR needs different skills than an account executive, taking into account their current level of skills and continuously trying to push them to improve the different sales-related skills like persuasion, confidence, knowledge of the tool, etc., analyzing their coachability, which I think is another big differentiation. We're not just telling you, hey, they practice X times a day. We tell you, hey, they're improving and they're coachable, which is a great sign, and that's somebody you want to have on your team.
Sure. Do you have numbers at your fingertips, correlation between those using this tool and the increase in sales?
Yes, primarily we see that they're able to double win rates and shorten sales cycles on average by 30%. And people are like, oh, wow, that's a huge number. How does that happen? It's because fundamentally the things that take too long to be addressed in the sales cycle are very repeatable. Like the prospects have the same type of questions again and again. So when you have an AI coach that remembers that and continuously supports you in answering these questions or in the negotiation stage, you're able to move so much faster than having to spend like 2 hours, go back in your LMS, or having to contact your manager and in a hectic like day. So that's how, like, you have basically an AI coach in your pocket supporting you to close the deal faster.
I see. Yeah, interesting. What also is interesting is that your solution is sort of an oxymoron, using AI
Yes.
to promote these very human skills. And it's actually a concept that is central to the whole AIX project, the whole idea of how you navigate this world of AI-augmented work. It's not necessarily supplanting us. It's enhancing what it is we do, improving what we do, giving us greater visibility into what makes people tick, what makes organizations tick, and just makes us, at least theoretically, all better. Again, that's not to be Pollyanna. We also know some of the challenges, and we are going to be very transparent in addressing that, which isn't to say I'm going to right out of the gate ask you about your PDOOM number, because that wouldn't be fair. But in your experience with Dex2Go, what are some of the biggest misconceptions people have about AI?
I think you addressed the biggest one, which is that it will fully automate our work, or that it will fully replace us. And in reality, if you take the simplest form of an LLM, unless you put the right content in it, it won't be helpful, right? Like, unless you create those parameters and you tell it like which skills to focus on and why they're important and how to assess them, it can't do much. So we have all the power in creating these tools and making them help us on a day-to-day. And I think the biggest misconception is that it's more harmful than what it can actually even be. Like people are very afraid of change, and it's a full circle to what I was saying at the beginning, right? When it's something new, like with the stainless steel straws, people want to shy away. But now, a few years in Gen AI, people see how powerful it is. So the fear that it might be better than what they can contribute in the organization is greater. And we already have seen, certain use cases, like at the beginning when Jasper and other tools like that for content creation came along, we saw some people getting fired for it. But I think where we are, and I say this again and again, we are in an inflection point where jobs are changing. So you will always see that like new jobs will be created, they can't be replaced till AI becomes better, then a new job gets created. So I think the misconception begins when people see their current job as the only job they can ever have. But if you start to see from a broader viewpoint that, hey, AI is here to actually change work overall, and we have to create the different jobs internally and different processes to help us achieve our goals, then you start to see it as something very helpful and productive. Like even to the sales example, like what you were saying earlier, now that all this process can be automated, now we have to have people actually out there in the field, in trade shows and in events, connecting with humans, since AI can send those emails for them and they don't have to be stuck on the computer. That doesn't mean they will stop selling.
Right.
Yeah, this is, I think, the biggest thing.
Now, you said that the Dextigo right now is focusing on sales people, but obviously soft skills are important across the board, no matter what role in the organization you're in, and to the extent that upskilling is very important, and to the extent that soft skills are part and parcel of any kind of upskilling path that anybody is on. What are your plans for Dextigo in broadening out beyond? Assuming you do have some plans beyond the salespeople.
Absolutely, yes. Firstly, for the entire revenue team, including customer success, marketing, but also back to like more managerial roles. So we're working with strategic partners to bring this to senior leadership, supporting like what CEOs are doing. Everybody needs coaching, right? Like no matter the years of experience you have, you always need someone that will give you different perspective or will tell you how you could have improved how you dealt with the situation. So our goal is to one day really support every single person at work. How you have Siri now always on your phone and it's always there when you have a question. We want Dexit to be something that people go to for soft skills.
Yes. Let me go back sort of to the earlier part of our conversation and about your entrepreneurial journey. What, in your view, makes a great founder? What would you say to a first-time entrepreneur, a younger version of yourself, or even an older version of yourself, who all of a sudden at a certain age decides, hey, I want to go out on my own?
Yes, I think the number one thing is vision, right? You have to have some sort of a vision and idea of what you want to create, but also be so resourceful that you're able to create a team around it that can help you execute it. But fundamentally, the two skills that always says persistence and adaptability / coachability, right? Like there, when you start, there's skills you won't have. There is things you won't know, but if you can be trained and if you can have people around you that you learn from, the faster you do that, the faster you'll end up to achieving your goal. There is no single founder I know that has told me, yeah, I started because I knew everything about how to make that business happen. Most of them say, I had no clue. I was just super passionate and I was doing experiments on a daily basis, recognizing patterns and iterating. That's the truth. The more information you have up front, the less of an idea maze you have to go through. But no matter what, the person that ends up staying alive is the person that is very resilient. And resilience comes in all aspects, right? Like financially, mentally, physically, because it takes so much out of an individual to go against the odds, as we were saying with the role models. We see it every day. And this persistence is something also collectively occurring, meaning the days that you are very low and you don't believe you can make it, you have to have the right team that believes in you and helps you get out of that negativity. So, I had a good friend of mine said to me, the biggest risk you make as an entrepreneur is actually the risk of association. So unless your team truly is there because they believe in what you build, it feels like a very lonely journey. But if you're with people that have the same vision, then it's a whole different game.
Yeah, no, it's very true. I mean, I've been an entrepreneur most of my professional life, and if I can distill it down, it really is maintaining a balance between having great confidence in your vision and being humble, understanding that you're not going to know everything. You're going to make mistakes. Every day is going to be a little bit different. Every day is going to have different challenges. New things are going to be thrown at you, but you do need to have that confidence to sort through it. You've been there before. You're going to figure it out. However you need to figure it out, whether you're going to do it by yourself, whether you're going to take advice, whether you're going to go against the tide and have the strength of your convictions. It's that ever-present balancing act, and that never ends.
Yes, so true. And of course, focus, right? Because the more you get into the market or the more you search, let's say, competitors, things like that, you can get discouraged because that's what happens always. Like I teach some classes here and there to university students, and they're so passionate about a new idea they have. And then when you tell them, hey, go research, does this idea exist? They start to see it everywhere and they get discouraged. But it's always about the mindset. If you see competition as proof that there is a market for what you're doing and you see it as an opportunity to disrupt it, then it changes the game. But if you see it as, oh, there's no way I'm going to cut through the noise, then you're done before you even start. It's all at the mindset and how you're able to reframe things in your head.
Oh, no, absolutely. I remember I worked for somebody some years ago, and he somehow equated not trusting anybody with great business savvy and acumen. His name was Mickey. I said to him, Mickey, I think you have it wrong. I think you need to figure out who you can trust, because there are people who have your interests at heart, or some people have really good judgment. They have experience worth listening to. That's really where you need to be discerning. It's not a matter of across the board trusting nobody. Who can I trust? And after a while, you develop those instincts.
That's very true. Very true. There's always two sides, right? As they say, every no takes you closer to a yes. But when you hear that no, you might say, okay, I'm going to stop because I've had enough.
Right.
Same thing.
Yeah, exactly. Ayanna, thanks so much for sharing with our listeners some of your journey, your thoughts on Dextigo, AI, and soft skills, and bringing it all together. And again, as I said a couple times in this conversation, your LinkedIn page is a really valuable resource to anybody, whether you're a first-time entrepreneur, you're a serial entrepreneur, whatever you are, your journey and the way you discuss it is really refreshing and illuminating. And I want to thank you for that.
Thank you so much, Charles. I really appreciate it. And that gives me even more motivation to keep going.
Good. Then I've done my job today. Excellent. Anyway, thanks so much, Ayanna. Today we spoke with Ayanna Onasi, co-founder and CEO of Dextigo's autonomous sales coaching platform. She spoke to us from her headquarters in Astoria, Queens. If you want to get some excellent Greek cuisine, make it a point for visiting Astoria. And if you're lucky, maybe you could hit up Ayanna for some good restaurant recommendations. Ayanna, again, thanks so much. This is Charles Epstein for the X Factor podcast. Thanks for listening.